Okay folks, we've been asked many times, how do you do stone coat countertops over existing Formica countertops? Well, this is the answer. In this video, we're going to show you the entire process of how to do stone coat countertops over your existing Formica countertops. And in this case, we didn't even have to unplumb the sink. We're going to show you step by step how to use our amazing base color, a base color that can actually be mixed directly into your stone coat countertop material. We're also going to show you some new effects that you can do with our metallic powders, and we show you how to get spray paint off the shelf at your local hardware store and turn a countertop that was drab into something that makes you glad. Check this video out and look at our website at stonecoatcountertops.com to learn more, but we hope you enjoy this video on how to go directly over your old nasty Formica countertops. Enjoy. Alright, here we are at this Formica countertop. We're going to show you exactly how to do stone coat countertop epoxy right over your existing Formica countertops. This top is in place here. We're going to cut this backsplash off. We're going to go around this undermount sink so you do not have to unplumb your sink. We're going to teach you how to do that. We'll teach you how to mask off the cabinet so you don't get any problems on your floor. And then we will show you exactly how to bond it and prime it and get this thing done in stone coat countertop. Here we go. Enjoy the video, and this is the secret to going over Formica countertops. Okay, this existing countertop has been salvaged. I guess this was reinstalled on this, and this countertop originally has a side splash right here that went against the wall. Well, this was reused here on this top, and our little rack was installed so that it would hide this side splash. So we're going to take this rack off and we're going to remove all the backsplash anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this to get ready to take off the backsplash. Okay, what we're going to do first, guys, is we're going to prep and mask the cabinet and the floor here, because we're going to create some dust when we cut off the backsplash. And we're going to prep the cabinet floor anyway, so we might as well do it first so there's no dust on the cabinet, no dust on the floor for our tape to stick to. So I'm going to prep this cabinet and get it ready to start our demo of the backsplash. But this particular counter is very tight to these drawers, and so I'm just going to remove the top drawers so that I have something real easy to tape to. Alright, the first thing that I like to mask when we're masking off is the floor. The reason I do the floor first is because when I put plastic on these cabinets, the plastic's going to go down and overlap our floor. So it just makes it easier doing the floor first. This is just simple builder's paper you can get at Home Depot or your local hardware store. And this is our first layer of protection. I actually will do the paper, and if you just left the paper on the ground and a lot of stone coat epoxy resin got on and pulled on it, it could saturate through the paper and bond to your floor. So this is just the first layer, and then I'm going to go over that with the plastic, and then I actually put a drop cloth down. You want to protect your floors and your cabinets, so then your demasking is really easy and stress-free. You'll pull everything off and it'll be clean, good as new. So take your time here prepping, and it'll be worth it in the end. So I will just take this paper and unroll it here, just a simple. Okay, so we've masked the floor, and we went ahead and covered this window just so that the light doesn't blind the camera, so you guys can see what we're doing here. The floor is masked, and now I'm going to start to mask this cabinet. Whenever I mask a cabinet, I like to use blue tape first on the wood, because white tape is more sticky and more aggressive than the blue tape. So I'll use blue first on all the wood, and then we'll go ahead and tape our plastic. We got our plastic sheeting that we're going to use, and we'll use white against our blue tape. But this is our nice clean line. So I like to just pull it in strips that I can handle, and I'll go up and I'll stick it up underneath the lip of the counter, if you can get it underneath there, or just right flush with that lip. So I'm just putting a layer of blue all the way around the perimeter here. Now that I got that blue tape perimeter, I'm actually going to overlap this wall down here a little bit because I want to move my plastic sheeting all the way out on the wall so that I don't drip it on this wall. Now this sheeting, I got this at Home Depot. It's 3 foot by 50 feet, and it's a thick mill. It's
4 mil.
Yeah, 4 mil. It's not just the painter's plastic. You can use painter's plastic, but this is just thicker, a little bit more insurance for you. So I'm just going to get a rough measurement here of how big of plastic I'm going to need, and always cut yourself a little extra. Don't leave it short. Now because I know I'm going to redo this countertop, I'll just use this as my cutting board. There we go. Now I got my plastic ready to tape up. And I'm going to use the white tape on the blue because the white will hold this plastic really, really tight. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to cut the backsplash off. Why do I cut the backsplash off? Well, when you're doing stone coat countertop epoxy, the material wants to roll off the front edges and off the backsplash much quicker, obviously, than it's going to on a horizontal flat surface. So what I like to do personally is cut this off, and then we'll fill in the back. We fill in the back of the actual countertop. Later in the video we'll show you how to use Bondo to do that and to create a perfectly sealed surface so that you don't have material just flowing on the back side of your counter and wasting it. You could go ahead and clean this and bond prime it and do the backsplash, but because the material wants to flow off, if you're doing a really ornate looking counter or something with a lot of colors and a lot of metallics in it, you're not going to get the same look on a vertical backsplash as you are the counter. When we do this, we like a real professional result, so that's why we're doing this particular step. This is called a multi-tool. Dremel makes one. I've actually used the Harbor Freight ones for years, and the Harbor Freight ones work just fine. The key is the blade. This is just a flush cut blade made for cutting wood, and you can see it's got teeth here, and this thing vibrates, and it's going to cut through this backsplash for me. It takes a little while, but it's going to be worth your time. Another way you could do it is with a Sawzall, but this is a little cleaner cut, and so this is what I'm going to use, and I'm going to go through here and flush cut all this backsplash off right now. Okay, so the multi-tool goes in there and it vibrates through all that. It's definitely time consuming, takes up some time. You want to make sure you have a good fresh blade when you do this, but man, your results come out really good. You get that backsplash off and it's flush to the counter. So now we're starting with something that resembles more of what we start with in the shop, which is MDF, but we got this cut. Now you see this gap here between the wall and the counter. That's a problem, so we're going to show you how to remedy that gap and how to prep this top again for the next steps of the stone coat countertop process. Okay, so after we've cut the backsplash off here, what we're going to do is this isn't normal. Normally you're going to have an edge that overhangs 1.5 inches just like the front. But we wanted to make it look normal because this counter was actually made to be butted against the wall here, so we cut that off. And I just fabricated this up in my shop out of MDF. This is what we make our normal counters out of if we're not going over Formica. But I just matched the radius, I butt this up here and I traced it, and I went and I cut it up in the shop. So now I'm gonna fill this in. So I'm gonna put a little bit of glue here on the front where it's gonna touch the nose, the bull nose. So there's some of that 2P10 glue that I like to use. And I'm just going to get this flush right here. Can you hand me that scraper there so we can make sure this is flush? So what I like to do here is just use that see that it's flush across the top, and I'm just going to screw this in. Okay, how about over here? Good. And then right here in the middle. So now you can see this whole countertop has a gap where that backsplash was along the back, and there was a big gap over here on the side. So I secured, this counter was kind of loose, and because I know I'm going through the, I'm going to cover the top, I went through the top and I screwed this back into the cabinet to make sure it's nice and secure there. I ran some screws in the back to make sure it's nice and secure in the back. So now we got a real sturdy base. And I went ahead and I used some shims. I just cut some shims out of that MDF, and I filled in a big part of this void so that when I Bondo the back of this crack, I don't have a big place for that Bondo to fall in and just keep falling out. So that's why I did that. This gap is no problem for the Bondo to fill, but that's how I've gotten this prepped so far. This accelerator right here will make that glue dry immediately. So now that'll be dry, and then this gap here, I'll come back and I'll Bondo this all as one piece. So that's what we're doing, and we'll go on to our next step right now. Okay, so the next step of what we're going to do is we're actually going to plastic this sink. We really want to do a good job masking this so that all of the Bondo and the epoxy and stuff that we're going to use doesn't hurt your existing sink. You can deplumb your sink if you so choose, but the way that we do here, it saves you that effort of undoing all the plumbing and replumbing it if you're not comfortable with that. So here's blue tape again. We start with blue tape, and the reason we start with blue tape is because it peels off a little easier than the white. Also, this gives me a really good idea of how far I am up from the bottom, because this is now an important step. You see where the epoxy is going to meet the sink, you don't want the tape all the way down onto the countertop surface. You want to lift it up, I'd say about 1/8 of an inch up off the surface, so that when we use our notch trowel, it flows out and it's not overlapping our tape that much. Now that being said, you're going to need to pull this tape before the stone coat epoxy cures, because it'll lock that tape in. Same thing with back against the wall. So I'm going to show you the tricks on how to do that. So when I mask off the sink, I don't keep the tape on the roll. I like to give myself a little bit of room here, and I'm just eyeballing about 1/8 of an inch up from the surface. And that's really important not to go all the way down, because then I'm going to start to pull this tape when I scrape off my drips on my underside of my edge, and that's the perfect time to pull your tape, but you have to be able to pull it without messing up the surface of what you did. So if you can see right there, so this is how I do it. I'll just first get it really tight on that edge, and then I'll just come here and crinkle that down. But can you see on camera how that's raised up off the edge? So that's what I'll go ahead and do all the way around the sink. So I'm just keeping that up. And again, you know, it's all in the prep. If you prep this right, that's the key to be able to do counters in place on site, is you got to have really good prep. And it's not hard to have good prep, but it's these little things that you have to pay attention to, or else it'll bite you. And so I got my tag on my plastic, and then I'm just going to follow that blue tape. And I like to have this tight so that it's not in the way overlapping my counter. Okay, so before I Bondo all the cracks and crevices that we're going to fill in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these Diablo discs I get at Home Depot. They're a 50 grit. This is a 5-inch, and here's an adapter for an angle grinder. This is just a cheap little Ryobi angle grinder. You can get them at Harbor Freight or Home Depot, wherever you want to get a cheap angle grinder. But this adapter, it's a grinder sander conversion kit, and what it does is it makes your sanding disc sit flush on your grinder. So I take this disc and I'm going to get rid of any high points from multi-tooling that off. So if you were to take a Sawzall and cut that backsplash, it's going to be high and low. It's going to be kind of rough, and this will smooth it out for you. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to go quickly here and get rid of the bumps and anything that's a little high, so it makes the coating process that much easier to make look perfect. So that's what you want it real rough. Wear a mask when you're doing that, but I'm talking to the camera, so that's why I'm not wearing it, but normally I wear my mask. Okay, so now what I got is I got an 80 grit sanding disc, and I'm going to take that disc and I'm just going to sand around that sink, because you want to make sure it's roughed everywhere on the surface. You don't want a glossy Formica surface. So I'm just quickly going to rough that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and do those edges. These edges are still glossy, and as soon as you hit them with this, it roughs them up. Get all the way underneath. You don't want any of this peeling, and this is how you create a really good mechanical bond. And then we're going to create a chemical bond with the actual bonding primer. And there you go. That's how you got to sand it. Now I'm ready for the Bondo. We'll get that mixed up. All right, what we got here is our Bondo all-purpose putty. I get this on Amazon, or I get this at Home Depot. And this is a brand new can. I've already mixed a bunch out. I put some white tape down just as a mixing board. And here's the hardener. But this is a brand new can, so I've already got it ready. Now what I'm going to do is mix this up. Some of that hardener out. That's about how much I use. It says to use like 2%, I believe. I just eyeball it because I've done a bunch of this. And I just take my spreader and start working that hardener in. You want to make sure the hardener gets mixed really well. It's really warm in this bathroom. This is the same material that I use to do my rock face edges. So you can go watch that video on how to do like a live edge or a rock face edge. I could turn this Formica into a rock face edge if I wanted to by cutting this flat and then doing this Bondo on the front edge, how I show in my rock face edge. That's a really cool look, but in this case we're just going to keep that bullnose look. So I'm mixing this up, and yeah, I'm getting it off the tape a little bit, but the tape just helps me clean up later a little easier. But because I'm going to be sanding this whole top again, I don't really care if I get stuff on it, but I'm mixing this really, really well. And you don't have a heck of a lot of working time with this, so you got to work quick. But here we go. I'll show you exactly what I'm going to start doing. Is I'm just going to start pushing it in to those cracks and then troweling it out. Push it in here. Now as this dries, it won't sink in quite as much, but right now I'm just getting most of it pushed in there. So you can see how that, you're going to want to cover those seams really good. You see how it's falling in there. There's a cabinet right below this that it'll catch it. But there you go. That's how I like to fill that. And then as this dries, I'll come back and hit it again. Where these seam together, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that there's good coverage there. And then where I got these screw holes in the side, you definitely want to Bondo over those and come back and sand them flush. Okay, let's continue on here. You can see why I have that tape against the wall. Now, this joint back here, most of it's going to be covered by my my backsplash that I'm making, but I still like to get this totally sealed so that my stone coat countertop material will not flow behind this. This is we're basically creating a dam for it to not flow, because it would just all want to roll back behind this counter, you know, until it was self-level. So this is helping me ensure that that doesn't happen. So it's still kind of wet, so I'm just gonna fill in what it can, and then I could come back as it's starting to gel and really shove it in there flush. You can see why I have that sink already prepped off, because you don't want to get Bondo on the sink. But this is a really neat way to be able to come through and make something in place without any of the work of doing the MDF. The MDF for me is a little faster just because I don't have to go on site and do it. But some people don't have the tools and stuff to do that, so this is how you do it in your situation in a kitchen or a bathroom on site without remaking the tops. You can leave that backsplash on, but I told you why I don't, you know, just because I think it looks more realistic. Now you can see why I put all those filler strips in. For me to have to fill all that with Bondo, it's just a lot of material. So I'm going to steal some of this excess here. You want to make sure you Bondo these screw holes that I screwed down through the top. And I'm going to have to mix up some more. But back here where there was a really big void, this will fill that in really, really well. See, it's starting to gel up now, so as you trowel it, it doesn't sink in that top like it was. But you don't want to mess with this stuff after it hits a certain gelling point, because you'll just kind of make it look uglier and uglier. So once you hit that point, it's time to get off of it and let it dry, and then sand it out if you don't like it and do another coat. So I'm going to get it behind this bull nose. There was a little gap in the wall, and that will make the stone coat countertop epoxy look like it just grew into the wall right there when we coat it. So all this prep work makes a big difference at the end result. Okay, so this is all dry. It's been about 15-20 minutes. It's nice and warm in here. All the first coat of Bondo is dry, and what I've done is I've just gone through here and scraped off anything that was built up in that high, and just scrape it off so that you don't have any high points there where you're going to do your next coat. Where it had kind of built over the edge, you can just scrape that off. This is just a drywall taping knife, but any putty knife or anything that has a nice sharp edge on it, you can just make sure that, like our high points here where the screws and stuff, all that, I scraped that off, put on another roll of tape, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our hardener, and we're going to do our second coat, because I just see little tiny pinholes here for where this seam was, and I see just a little bit of a gap back here where some of this backsplash was. But all in all, this takes a lot less material to fill in, and we'll float it, and then we'll come back after that dries and sand. Okay, so we got the second coat of Bondo dry, and how I could tell is I leave the Bondo on our little spatula spreader, and you can crack that and it peels right off. That's why I don't clean off my spreader, but this tells you, okay, that's ready to work with. So that's kind of the gauge that I use, is I'll keep my spreader up on the top, and I'll know when it's dry, because you can feel that without putting your hands into sticky Bondo. So now that the Bondo's dry, I do have some high points on it, just some nibs and stuff from using that little spatula and getting it spread out. So I got 220 on my sander, and I'm just going to quickly go through and get rid of any nibs. So now when I rub my hand on this top, I can feel little bumps and stuff back here, just a little bit from spreading that with the spatula. I feel a little bit of, you know, a little taper right here from the Bondo feathering it down. It's not perfect. You're not looking for perfection at this point at all. All right, now we got the countertop sanded after we did our second coat of Bondo. So this is TSP, trisodium phosphate. Trisodium phosphate is made to clean, degrease, and get rid of gloss on paint, prepping materials for new coatings. And so I just buy the box of concentrate and I mix it in with warm water. And so that's what this is here, is I just follow the directions, mix a little bit in a container with warm water, and then I'll spray it on and wipe it off to get it clean. That's the first step I do. So I'll go through here and I'll spray the whole counter. And I also like to clean a real dirty counter and greasy counter before I even sand, so that you don't sand grit and grime into the top. So make sure that you don't start out working with a dirty counter. Now I'm just going to go through here and wash the counter. And when you do this, you actually feel that that Formica become, it feels different after you've sanded and you've used TSP on it. It really feels quite different. And so as you work with this, you'll get the hang of how that feels. Okay, that feels pretty good. Spray a little bit of Windex here, and then I'll wipe off the residue of Windex. Okay, so now what we're about to do, we've cleaned our top, we let the top dry, gotten rid of all our nibs and nubs and that kind of thing. And now I have our XIM Peel Bond. And the only time that I use this product is when I'm going over existing Formica countertops. Is it 100% necessary? Well, we've done so much prep work already. We've sanded, we've done our Bondo, we've cleaned. This is just insurance. This is making sure that the Stone Coat countertop material will bond to Formica. We have tested, it will absolutely bond by roughing it up, but this is creating that chemical bond as well. It's really an adhesion promoter. So it's very inexpensive to do your entire kitchen. You know, this will do up to about 80 square feet of kitchen countertops. So it doesn't require a lot of material and it's pretty inexpensive. So that's why we highly recommend using it. How do you apply it? Well, we've shaken the can. I've already pre-opened the can. You can actually get this right off of Amazon. We have a link on our website so that you get the same material that we have here. But you can see it's white, but it'll dry to a hazy clear when it's ready to be top coated. But what we do is we will just dip a little bit onto our roller and roll it out. Instead of doing it into a pan, you can use a pan too, whatever you like. This is really thick material and you don't want it on thick. When you roll it on your Formica, you want it really thin. You don't need a lot. This is all this is doing. It's just going to create a great surface to do Stone Coat countertops on. So you can see I'm just applying it very thin. It's not really imperative that you get it over where we've done our Bondo, but I still do anyways. But if you're going to go short somewhere, that's where you go short. But you can see there's no finesse to it. You're just rolling it out very thin. It's nice and warm here in our work area, so that's a good thing. You want to do the edges really well too. So I'm going to roll a little bit out here because I needed some on my roller, and I'm going to slop it on the edges and then come back and finesse those edges. I'm going to do this edge too. And I'm just using a little 6-inch weenie roller. You can get these. I use it. It says for smooth surfaces. You don't want a real heavy nap. You don't want this stuff on real thick. That's not necessary. Get under that edge, and this is where it's important that you use a thicker mill plastic so that my roller won't tear that plastic that we've already prepped our counter with. Make sure you get all the way around that sink. Get back in here. I'm going to put a little bit more on my roller here. stuff almost is like working with glue. It's nice and thick, but just get it out thin. You don't need a lot of material. Just one thin coat is all you really need. You can do 2 coats if you really want to, but I don't. I just do the one thin coat and have very, very good success with this bonding. You can use another product called Kills Bonding Primer, but you have to make sure it's the Kills Primer that says for smooth surfaces to create a bond. You need to get the right one. This one here, in my opinion, is a little bit better. I've tested them with I've tested this just going over Formica without sanding, and it makes the stone coat bond, which nothing wants to bond to Formica like that. It's like putting something in a plastic bucket. You could flex the bucket and it pops off clean, kind of like our spatula with the Bondo. But just rolling this onto raw Formica and then putting stone coat on, it makes it bond. So this is just such a redundant system that we do because we want long-term results out of these. We don't want to just have it work for a little while and then have the material pop. So that's why we do it this way. All right, now our XIM Peel Bond Primer is dry. It's clear. You can't tell that it's even on there, but it's totally dry. We waited a half an hour, came back, good to go, but it's nice and warm. We got it about 70 degrees in this room. So now it's the fun part begins. We're going to put our base color on the countertop and really start to change the look of this. This is a cool base color. This is a base color that we actually carry on our site. It's a little bit different than the base colors that you can get that we've been talking about, like the paint and primer in one. It's actually a lot different, and I'll tell you why. The paint and primer in one that we do over MDF and that we do on a regular basis, it cannot be mixed with the Stone Coat Countertop epoxy. You cannot roll or put that epoxy on that fresh paint. You need to let it dry. Now this product, however, it's multi-use and it's really cool because you can paint the base of your substrate, but it's also really cool because you can tint your actual Stone Coat Part A and Part B with this base color. You can pour it in after you've mixed it together. You pour it in to tint it, and you get really crazy effects with that. But we're going to start out, this is a copper color. We're going to start out doing just this surface with the copper base color. Now these are different than our metallics. Our metallics come in a powder form that look like these here. This is a metallic white. This is a metallic copper. We have metallic blues and all kinds of different really beautiful metallics. But this is a base color. The metallics also can be mixed with the resin. And so we'll show you all the different ways that we actually color these. And honestly, you can make these tops look cool so many different ways. But this, in our videos, we like to show you how the products work. So shake that up nice and good. And this is enough material to tint 2 full gallons of that Stone Coat Part A and Part B countertop mixing material. So this is plenty of material for that. Now I also use this to actually do a base color on the tops. So it's a good amount of material, but you would need to buy multiple kits of this if you're going to use this as your base color in your entire countertop. And look at our website for how much and how far it goes. Alright, so this is what the actual copper looks like. That's a really cool looking material. So I'm actually going to pour a little bit of this out on the surface, and we're going to start to roll that on. And a little of this goes a long way too, and you don't need to get this really thick on there. Again, this is just the undertone of our counter, so it's not like you're going to see this a ton. Okay, so now I got my paintbrush out, and we're just going to cut this in here in the back. So I'm just going to take this and get it all the way back there. That's all I'm doing here. But there's that copper base color from Stone Coat Countertops. And this is something that you can order right from our site. We have a lot of different base colors, and this can be mixed right with your Part A and Part B just to make the so sometimes we'll mix it and just in a little cup off to the side for like accents that make a river through or a vein, and then you could put different colors through that, and those effects are crazy. I mean, and you could do multiple. You can do base color, then you could do metallics in another cup and mix those together. So when you're playing with your sample boards, have fun with it, but to have more color options makes each and every countertop that much more unique. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we get asked all the time, how do I do vertical surfaces with Stone Coat countertops? Well, this is how. This is the backsplash. So we cut off the existing backsplash because we're going to make our own backsplash. And this is just 3/4 inch MDF. And I put little pieces that I pin nail on the back so that when we pour this, I can lay it flat and it's up off the surface. So typically we'll lay this flat on a workbench or something, but those will keep it up off the workbench. But you don't want those all the way to the edges so that the drips, you'll still be able to get these off. So that's our back side. And now it's really important I put a slight little radius on this. The reason I do is so that the Stone Coat countertop material will actually flow really well over that radius. So this is for that back wall, and then this little piece is for the side splash. So I'm going to go ahead and roll some of that base color right onto these. Now we didn't need the bonding adhesive or anything like that on these because it's fresh MDF. So I'll just go ahead and roll these, and it'll be ready for our Stone Coat countertop material when we pour. Okay, so we got our coat of base color on the countertop. It's dry. It's been about 30 minutes, and you can see on the MDF it's dried a little different color than the actual counter. I did a second coat here, and that's because the MDF is a little bit more porous than this Formica, so it's drying a little different. So just do 2 coats when you're doing the MDF if you're going to use this as your base color. So just like if you were doing a base color with the paint primer in one, you're going to want to do 2 coats on a raw substrate like that. I could do 2 coats on the Formica, but I'm not going to because I'm going to be adding so many different colors to it. That's just acting like my base color. Make sure you get your edges good because it wants to soak in those edges. So get your edges done nice and good, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to peel the existing blue tape because any Bondo or any paint that's gotten on there, I'm going to start fresh so that I know when I peel off after I've done the counter, I will have nothing sticking and flaking into the top. So I'm just going to take this tape and carefully peel this off right now. See, like this Bondo that's sticking on it and stuff like that. I don't want to get those kind of chunks into the surface. So go ahead and take care of that now, and cleaning this off later will be a little easier. Now I'm going to put up a fresh roll of tape. I'm going to try to keep this all one piece. That way when I peel, it doesn't come off in sections. And this doesn't have to be real accurate. I'm just going above the surface. I'm just giving myself some protection from my spray bottles. Okay, I'm going to show you exactly how we mix the isopropyl alcohol in with the metallics to give yourself a good ratio and the mix that we like. So here's our actual Stone Coat metallic mix. This is enough to do a full 2-gallon kit of, if you were straight to mix this with 2 gallons of Stone Coat countertop epoxy, this bag does it perfectly. But when I mix it with the spray bottle, we use half a bag of the actual metallic powder to 12 ounces of isopropyl alcohol. So that's your mix. So I like to use a little funnel because it makes sure I don't get it everywhere, but you can pour it if you go nice and easy. But I'll use a funnel and just get about half that bag in there. Tap out the excess. And then these bags are, you know, resealable, so reseal it. You can use that into the actual resin, or you can use it later and mix it more with alcohol, or you can do 24 ounces of alcohol mixed with it to spray in your counters. And when I spray the alcohols into the actual counter, they last a lot of jobs. So I have colors mixed that will last multiple jobs. So a little of this goes a very long way, and it's a high concentrate of powder, so it's color fast. It doesn't fade in UV, and that's also the nice thing about the base color that we've used here. It doesn't fade in UV at all. It's very color fast. It's very rich. There is a smell to the base color, so you got to keep that in mind if you're working for somebody or you're highly sensitive to paint smells. This does have a smell. The paint primer in one, much more mild, and then the actual Stone Coat product is 0 VOC, no smell. But this has a strong odor, so just keep that in mind when you're working with the product. Okay, we use 91% isopropyl alcohol to mix with the metallic powders. I get this at Walgreens. It's pretty inexpensive, but that's what we're using to mix. So when you pour it in, you're going to want to pour, I got a little container here with measurements on it, and I just go right to 12 ounces. So there you go. That's your metallic powders. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cap on, and then I'm going to shake it really well. And you're going to want to shake this between uses too. Don't, because it'll settle. So you just shake that up in the spray bottle, and then you're ready to go. You want to test the spray too before you use it. You get the spray kind of in the spray. That's like a stream, and then I could go like a fine mist right there. So you keep it kind of set how you like it. But there's our blue. We got all kinds of different colors that we use. I think we have 13 different metallic powders to choose from. Makes it real fancy, and then you could use different base colors to get even more color effects, and it's just unlimited of the looks you can go for. Okay, so we've begun mixing our Part A and Part B of Stone Coat Countertop Mix, and this is a metallic powder. These are what we send to do either with the alcohol spray bottles, or you can mix this directly into the resin, and we'll show you exactly how far this goes. You want to come close and we'll show how to mix this in. So here's just a little concentrate bag, and I'm going to pour a little bit in there. So there's about a third of the bag right there, and that's a half gallon. This is coffee color is what it's called, and this looks really cool blending over a base of metallic, a base of copper. But you can see how that reflects the light. I mean, that's just a really rich color. So make sure you mix it. I mix the 2 parts first, and then I come through and mix the color in really well. Okay, I'm going to let that drip off there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I got more material than what I need because I'm going to do some really neat effects, but I'm going to pour the top, and then I'm going to put some base color into this to change the color again and come over with some striations and stuff like that. Okay, so when you're going behind a sink don't do it when you have a full bucket here. I'm going to pour some out here. I'm going to pour some out over here. And then now that my bucket's not so full, I could come right there behind that sink a little easier without worrying. And I'm not going to use all this. I'm going to scrape a lot of this back in the bucket. But this lets me move the material around. Alright, so now I'm going to start to move this. And again, we mix as we move. Let me just pour the rest of it out because we know that we like to mix our material together. So I'm going to mix it all. I'm going to grab a stir stick. And this allows me to scrape everything that's in here, scrape it into itself, and then I'll mix it with the trowel. And then when I chop, it'll mix it again. You don't want to leave the material in the bucket for a long period of time because it'll start to heat up and prematurely it'll start to cure. So get it out on the substrate. Let's go ahead now and mix that together. You can see just how cool that already looks. Okay, now I'm just going to start moving the material around as normal. And all you got to do is just kind of touch the rim of that sink and it'll self-level. And I'm going to bring it close to that edge. Move it back here a little bit. And you can see how easy this stuff moves. And that's because we have the correct temperature. It's not super cold in here. It's not super hot. We're great temperature. So just get this stuff troweled out, and then you can start doing your different color effects. So this is where all my excess material is. So I'm going to make sure and get a lot of this right off the counter. So I'm going to come scrape this back into the bucket. Because you only need that 1/8 inch notch, and you want to make sure you don't need much more than that, but this is going to give us some extra material for effects. Now, okay, let's go ahead and give ourselves, the reason that I poured all of it on the top again is so that I can mix whatever's in that bucket. Going all the way to the back. Even though I'm going to have backsplash there, I want to coat it all the way to the back. This is a great little weekend project. My wife and I did this together today, and this is just a vanity, so a kitchen's going to take longer. But it's great to learn on your vanities too, or end tables, or just make samples. If you're going to turn this into a business, make some samples, and then record yourself doing those samples so that you have the formula. You know how to reproduce the cool result that you're going to come up with. So now I'm going to get all this, I'm just going to use that trowel and give myself a little bit more material, and you're going to get this all the way back, because this material self-levels so well. All you really need to do is push it in place, and it's going to level back to this 1/8 inch that we're troweling it out at. I'm just scooping it, there you go, and then it'll want to suck back to the rest of its level. Take your time troweling it out. Don't need to be in a hurry. You got plenty of working time with this. Okay, I'm going to now take the excess off of this side. Okay, so now I got it all troweled out on the top. Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to do the edges. So this is just like if we were doing it in clear. You're going to treat it the same. I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to de-bristle it, make sure there's no loose bristles. And then prime my brush, and I'm just going to start coating those edges. See, now this is why it's really important that you have that primer color on there, because you're going to get more color on top than you are on the face, but that's why we do a very similar primer color to what we're going to do as our main color of the countertop. So get underneath these. And then we're going to do this edge here that we fabricated. And now you cannot tell that we added this edge on either. Okay. Now you can see all these trowel marks in the top. So I'm going to prime my brush and I'm just going to start chopping. Get all the way back to your tape. A little thick back here, so I'm going to move some of that because I don't want it to stick to my my tape back there. And we're just going to go in a random pattern and watch what this metallic coffee does here. Some people really like just the look of that. And that's just from picking it up and putting it back down again. We're just using our nylon bristle brush. We have a link to these brushes. They cost about $5, but they work a lot better than a chip brush, because a chip brush loses a lot more bristles. Okay, now because I chopped it, I'm going to go ahead and do those edges again. Alright. Okay. Now I'm going to do something pretty cool. We're going to take some of this leftover coffee. I'm going to pour it into a little container here. Just like that. So now I got coffee in there, but I'm going to leave some coffee undone, and I'm going to take some black base color. Remember how I told you that you could mix the base color in directly with the resin? Well, proof's in the pudding. Let's try it. So we're going to take some black base color, and again, this will not fade. It doesn't lose its color. We're going to pour just a little bit in there. You can see that I just poured it right in there. And now I'm going to use that to tint this. And we're going to get a totally different color. So there we go. Now we got like a mixture of metallic and black in there, and that looks really cool. Let's pour some on the top. I'll just go ahead and start this over here. Pour it, make that vein go over, all the way over here. Wow, look at that. That's already looking cool. Come back, make it a little bigger here. Okay, so there's another look you can do. Okay, now we're going to do a paint stick. We're going to take a paint stick and we're going to put some paint on it. Let's see, what color we got here? This is gray. We got some black.
White,
and we got some white. Okay. So I'm just going to shake up some regular white paint here. It's from Rustoleum. You can get Any spray paint off the shelf at Home Depot works really good. Okay, and I'm just gonna go right through that we just did. Boom. Bring that over here. Do some white in there. And you can see here I'm just moving that paint stick back and forth. And I want to bring that paint all the way to the edge. See that? How I brought it all the way to the edge. We'll mix it out like that. Just kind of spread this out here. That's going to look really neat. And then we'll just move these together a little bit more. Okay, you could also fog a little bit of white in your top. Okay, so I'll just do that, just a little sporadic spray paint. Be careful of your walls. Put a little back here. Okay, now I know I'm going to do my backsplash, so keep everything that you do aside so you can match it with your backsplash. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of this charcoal gray. Put a little gray in there. Just a little bit of a different color. Move that around a little bit. Put some of that in there. I could spray some of that in the top. Just give it a little different look there. All right. Very cool. Now, I'm going to blend these a little bit. Okay, so you can leave it like this. We're trying to show you different looks of what you can do. You can leave it like this, but to make it look a little bit more natural, I'll take my brush and I'll just blend these together. And blending those together looks really cool. And that will flow right back together. Look like a really neat vein through there. Okay, now I'm going to take and chop some parts over here with this color that's on my brush. You could kind of come through the top. Chop some of that white. Now I could see that the material's thicker back here, but that's because this counter is actually out of level a little bit. So this is going to level that counter. Now if I want to put lines in this, I could do striation to where it looks like grain is in the top, and then this will come back to a fancy look. You know, let that flow. That's another look instead of chopping that you can do. You can chop it if you like that better, which I think on this top, I think the chop will look better. So we'll chop it. You can see that copper base coming through our coffee metallic. That looks really neat. I'm going to chop it back here. You can see where I sprayed that white. When I chop it, it's going to make it kind of marble-fy. It'll make it look more like marble. And I'm kind of hitting the edge of my vein there just to make it blend. I could hit the edge of this and just make it blend with the top there. It's going to look more natural. You can see how that works. Wow, that's cool. Let's do that over here. We'll just chop the edge of it into it. And all these techniques that I've just learned by playing with the material, not being afraid of color. Okay. So there we go. There's that look, and you can see how those colors have come back together, but then you still see some undertone. Now if I want, I could bring more of a vein back into that. So I could add my bright white and bring some black into it just to define the center of this vein. Let's show this here. So I'm going to just bring a little bit of white right back into the center of that vein, and that just defines it again. So if you erased it and you're kind of unhappy, no, I like that side over there. I'm going to leave that, but then I can add a little bit of black spray paint. I'm going to put right into the center of that vein. So just to mix those a little bit. And then when I move that with the torch, it's really going to make it change. Look, I'll actually show you what the torch does right now. So when you have the torch, let's look at this vein right over here, for instance. So So see how it's already swirling and meeting each other? That's really cool, but when you move it with the torch, it looks even more realistic. So see this spot down here where it's not actually going to the wall? I'll just take my finger and rub that and it'll then connect. So any spots, like if you don't like some spots in the top, like all these little speckles, you can just use your finger and chop them out and it'll come back together. Little speckles over here, you can just chop those out. Anything that you don't like, if you just move it, it changes. All right, now we're gonna try something even cooler. Uh-oh.
We need to chop right there.
Chop right here? Okay, so that's a good observation. You can see how this counter doesn't match right here because we haven't chopped the front like the rest of it. So I'll get some of our material here and just chop it out and then brush out the front. But yeah, there we go. Okay, now we're going to use some of our metallics with isopropyl and I'll show you what that's going to do. So that blue that we just mixed up, I'm going to hit this very, very little bit with blue. I don't want a lot.
Hold on. Like.
So I just hit all that with isopropyl and you can see what it did. You can see how it moves that vein.
Hold on 1 second. Okay.
You see how it moved it over here.
Let's see this one first.
Okay, so here's what it looks like before the isopropyl and the blue mix. And then I'm going to hit right down the center of that with blue. And then I'm going to fine mist it.
Let's just watch it for 1 second. It's kind of moving. It's pretty cool to watch that.
So here, I'm going to fine mist it back here. You ready? Fine mist a little bit right there. And look at what it does to that surface.
Now, does it need something on top in order for that to happen?
Yeah, it needs, see this is where we sprayed that white and we fogged the white. And you can see it took the white paint and it granified it. If you didn't have any white paint on there, you wouldn't see it so drastic. So now I'm going to get some of my other metallics. And we're going to hit this with, here's some silver. I'm going to do like a heavier stream right here of silver. I'm going to do some silver through this vein. Do back to a fine mist. Okay. And I'm going to hit it with, let's hit it with some black metallic.
How to shake it up?
Oh, thank you. Shake that up before you use it. And if there's black on top of silver, I'll make it more of a stream through this. And you can just see the sparkles of it in there. The black is really metallic-y, so it looks like metal there. So I'm just putting these different metallics in there. And then I'm going to do a little bit more blue in this. Just a subtle blue. That's why I don't mix a lot of powder in with the alcohol, because a little goes a long way and I almost want it transparent. So I'm making like that part right there, putting kind of heavy blue right there. So there's now a reflection of blue, and that looks really neat. Maybe a little bit up here. You want some down here?
No.
My wife says right over here.
In the back. In the middle. of the eye. The thing. There you go.
Wow, look at that. Let's put some more in the vein. Okay. I said we put some clay in there. We're actually
using just copper.
do some copper in there? Okay. Now come look at what this blue looks like right here. These are just such neat effects that I did nothing to earn. They just happen. And that, I mean, you can see now how that blue is kind of intermixed into that vein. You see how natural that looks? That's because we're using multiple colors here. Alright, let's go ahead and...
You have drips.
Okay.
You're gonna do that. So
Yeah, see this big drip? See how I don't like this crater? All I got to do is take my finger and move that a little bit. Now that'll come back to life. If I don't like those craters, just touch them. Just touch them and they fill back in. So right here there's a big crater. Just touch it.
Make sure to use gloves.
Yep, use gloves. You'll have a sticky mess on your hands. No pun intended. Okay. Here's some copper. Oh, that'll look cool through that vein a little bit. Wow. So I'm misting some copper on it. And then I'm going to come back and put a little bit more black through this vein. That's pretty cool. So right here, you can see this drip that I just did. Just take your finger and kind of move it around. Extend this black right through it. That's all you got to do to make it look right. See how this white's kind of heavy? If I just drag through it, it lightens it up a little bit. I'm going to take and just follow this with my finger. Just make it look more imperfect than straight. I like that.
I think you need a heavier black on the top, down the middle.
Of this?
Yeah, you have it. It's not the same.
Okay, let's do it.
Don't too heavy, just a little bit better. There you go. That's the same.
Okay, now I think I'm going to put some metallic. Actually, watch this. I got a great idea. I'm going to mix this up. We're going to go right through that vein with this. This is just that original coffee that we mixed together. Oh, that's going to look cool. So I'll just put a little bit more striations of that in there. And then I'll move that with the torch. Now I think what I'm going to do is move that with the stick a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to come through here and just touch those colors with the stick, and it just melds those together a little bit more. I like that. Okay, my wife says I'm done. I like to play, but now here's some of these drips I don't like. Just going to put a little bit of material in them. Okay, there's a drip right here, like a isopropyl alcohol. You can do that and just kind of touch it. It'll blend it, but it gives it material to fill those in. We'll brush that out. Anytime you don't like something, you could play with it. It's not going to hurt it. Brush it out. It'll come back to life, trust me. So you can see where I mixed it in here. Looks fine. We're in a tight bathroom, so sorry about any weird shots. Now see, I don't like this. This to me looks a little too fake right here, so I'm just going to touch it. And I'm just going to touch this a little bit. And now that'll look real when it cures. So any real circles that I don't like, I can move. I'm going to hit this again with some color here, just to fix that edge because it has no bumps.
Wrap it up.
Putting a little bit more metallics in here just at this front edge. Here's some black on copper. Put some in the back here. Oh yeah. Oh, got a little on the wall. You got to be careful. You should probably mask that off back there. I'm just putting a little bit more copper on this where I brushed it. And I'm gonna.
The reflection of the blue tape is creating a little bit of a false sense of
Blue.
blue, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. So now we need to torch it. And you got to be careful here, because what did we add? We added alcohol into this. So when you torch it, just be really careful, especially when you're not in your shop environment. So I'm touching some of those now craters. I'm going to torch it, so I don't see any more craters. As soon as you touch them, it breaks that surface tension, and they come back together. I'm going to rub the underside of this to get rid of any drips there. And you can see how the vein comes over the edge. That's really important. And now we're going to torch this sucker. So if you wait just a minute like I did, the alcohol will kind of saturate off. And that's what's happened. You can see this copper that I sprayed in there. I'm moving that around. This is set a little bit, but it's still very liquid. I will come back in about 6 hours and the drips underneath this will be ready for me to go ahead and scrape off. But right now, I'm just going to peel this sink, and I'm going to peel this. You can see my blue tape isn't anywhere near the top, so it's probably okay. But I'm going to peel this this masking off the sink right now because it is thick around the sink, and that will let it gel right to the sink. So to get it started, it's a little tricky. You gotta start peeling it, and you gotta be really careful pulling this off because you do not want to get a bunch of junk in the sink or in the top. But because this is still very wet, if we did get anything in it, it would be repairable right now. If you're going to do another coat, you need to re-prep the sink. Okay, so I had a little leak right here, you see, so this is actually really good that we're tearing this off. I did not push the tape down hard enough right there, but now because that's still liquid, we can get it right off. So I'm going to get a towel and wipe that up. That's why it's important to really press down. So I'm just wiping this right off the porcelain with a towel. And then if you need, you could take a little bit of acetone, and that will get off anything that you spill like that. But this is good that I'm de-prepping this when it's still in liquid form, because it's really easy to clean off still. It will not be easy to clean off once it hardens. Okay. Okay, I'm actually going to take my glove off so I have a clean hand. I'm going to start taking this off. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and get this. There's still some hung back up here on the back side, so I'm tucking my shirt in here so I don't get my shirt in the countertop. Just peeling that right off. Now I'm going to wipe it off the sink here where I got a couple of drips. But you can see how that just wants to self-level and look really good. There's a little drip there, a little bit. And like I said, you can use, after it's dry, you can use a little acetone if you had something, but now that sink looks really good. So that's a good thing that I did that now.
Want to do the walls? Or are we
Yeah,
deciding?
let's do the walls. The only thing that's risky about the walls is getting like chunks into the top. But let's do it. We're going to go nice and slow. And you remember I did one piece of tape here on the bottom, so it's all going to come off without tearing. And it's not a bad idea when you're spraying metallics. I should have masked up the wall a little bit, but this bathroom's actually getting repainted. Okay.
Wow. That allows us just to see the real color. Beautiful.
I'm going to go get the torch. Okay. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to torch this material again just to get rid of any of the bubbles and air pockets and stuff like that. We're going to do an overview of kind of how we made this top. First, what we did is we rolled a base color of copper down over the Formica. After we did the base color of copper, we mixed coffee into the part A and part B, and we poured that on the entire top. After we did the coffee, we went ahead and we chopped the whole top. After we chopped it, it made it look different. It pulled some color, it made it look kind of marbly. And then we mixed some black base color in, and we created a vein, a big vein. And then after we did that, we took some spray paint on a stick and we put it through that black base color mixed in with the coffee. And that's what that came out. Then we mixed those colors. Then we started spraying metallics. You can see over here, you got faint blue metallic. You got blue that's mixed in with that black. We put some gray and white in that vein with spray paint. We did silver and we did copper right here of the actual metallics. Back here, it's real important to note, we sprayed some white fog spray paint, then we hit it with some silver isopropyl alcohol, and it made that granified almost pebble look with veins all on its own. Then we did the same vein all the way through, so it flowed through our counter. That's how we got this top. We weren't scared of color, we went after it. And then we deep-prepped our sink before the material had a real chance to set up. The reason we do that is because then it flows really good around that edge. And you can see we kept that tape about 1/8 of an inch up off the surface of the counter. And that's so that we didn't pull the material back off the counter. Then we torch it. What we'll do tomorrow, so we took the backsplash to another place where we could let it sit overnight, and we did the backsplash. And we didn't put any of the black in the backsplash because we don't have any black back here. So we just made it look like the main part of this top, so that it's not, that the focus of this would be that vein running through the sink. Now for you to get this look, going to a stone yard, you would have to find a piece that had that vein right where you'd want your sink and had it fabricated that way. That would be very expensive to do. In this case, you can recreate that and do whatever looks that you want. Stone coat is honestly, sky's the limit on color. You can do whatever you want. We like to do 2 coats. We will come back and pour a second coat because I see little nibs and dibs here and there, and because we did so much color, you're going to have some imperfection in the top. A second just flood coat of clear, it gets all that out of there, so it looks just fabulous. And then we'll put another coat of clear on the backsplash, and we'll come back and install that backsplash. So hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll show you how it looks at the end.
Top about 4 hours later. It's about 70 degrees in here, and we're gonna get rid of the drips. I'll show you what the drips look like here under the countertop. So I'm laying on my back, and you can see the drips here. And because it's gelled and they're not dripping any longer, it's a perfect time to get these off. If not, you got to get these off after it's dry, and that's a little more difficult because you're gonna have to sand them. But right now, I'm just gonna use this spatula. You can see I've already started on that one end just to test it. But this is that same spatula that I use when I'm doing the Bondo. So this is gonna be kind of hard to film and scrape at the same time. But we're going to do our best here to catch it on film. But you'll get the idea here. So I'm just going to start scraping, and I'm just kind of keeping it on the back edge there. And just scrape those drips right off. So that's what I'm doing. So you can see underneath they're all scraped off. You're not going to see the underside of this counter. So it's okay just to get those. It's kind of hard to do this on film and watch what I'm doing at the same time, but we're doing our best here. Okay, so I've scraped it all right there, and then I'll go get the rest of them under this top. Here, I'll scoot down and see if we can do a little better job here getting it on camera. Okay, so I'm going to get my spatula there and just run it right down there. So you can see I just scraped all those off. It's really gelled there. So I just use my masking to get that off. Wipe it right off on the masking. Continue right down the line here. So it's really easy to get it off, and you're not going to see under that lip. Okay, so that's the time to get rid of those drips. And there we are, so you can see that doesn't show up on the top. Man, this top's looking really cool. I can't wait to show it to you guys all finished up. Look at that. Look at that really cool vein. The copper. So we poured the backsplash in another location, and we'll bring that and install that after this counter's done. But yeah, this is another good idea to remind you not to use the sink until it's done. So there you go.
Okay, this is day 2 on this countertop, and it's all totally cured. It's very, very dry. It's not sticky at all. We came in here last night and we got the drips off, and that feels good. And now, because we're going to do a second coat, we're going to do a second flood coat. And the reason I do that is because I can see little bits of nibs here and little imperfections in the surface. Some of them here on the edge. You know, it's kind of rough right here on this corner. But as a whole, this thing looks really cool. So some people might be really happy with this look right here and just be done and excited that they got their new counter. We're going to go to the next level, and we're going to do a second flood coat that's not mixed with anything but just the Stone Coat Countertop epoxy. And we put that on, we chop it, we torch it, and we walk away. And when that's done, this will be a very flat, very you know, free of imperfections, and that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sand this surface, because I'm going to get rid of some of these nibs, but more importantly, we need to create something for the new resin, the new Stone Coat Countertop flood coat that we're putting on right now to bond. If you pour it over this, it'll bond, but it's not going to bond to the tenacious level that we want. We want a permanent, really, really tight bond, and so we just have to scuff it up and degloss the surface a little bit. So this is just a piece of 220. You can use this or maroon Scotch-Brite pad, anything that takes the gloss. And so all I'm going to do is just go through here and sand this. When I'm doing a really big job in our shop, I'll use a random orbital sander, just make this part much quicker. But you can see, because this is real fresh and brand new, it sands very, very easily. The Stone Coat Countertop material will cure over about a 2-week to a 30-day period. And so in that first curing process, you need to baby the material. You need to be careful setting real heavy objects or sliding sharp things. Like you never want to slide sharp objects on it, but just be careful with the material. And as you're careful, it'll cure out and it'll get stronger and stronger every day. So keep that in mind when you're doing these countertops. But after about 48 hours, you can use your counter and get back to everyday use. So I'm just getting in here behind the sink and just scuff sanding it. You can see I'm just scratching it up, and all these scratches go away as soon as you put that new coat on. And just wipe this dust off. You can see it's wiping that off. In the shop, when I'm pouring these, I'll just take air and blow these off and then wipe them. But we're in a customer's house here, so you just want to be careful. Okay, we're about to do our second flood coat. One thing I want to talk about is the Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy. It'll do about 40 to 50 square feet per gallon. It goes a long way. But on this top, we only have about a 12 square foot top here, and then I have some backsplash, so it makes it about a 14 to 15 square foot project. But I always like to order or get a little bit more mixed up so that it's enough material where I'm not skimping on material towards the end of the project. I want to have enough so I can trowel it out. I'm not making it too thin in areas and then chop it and it lays out just perfectly like glass. So when you are ordering your material, make sure you have enough, and you could always use it later for samples or a smaller project, or if you come into another project you want to do and you have some left over, it will intermix right with the new stuff that you order. So keep that in mind. A little does go a long way, but you don't want to get most of the project finished and just have to finish one end. It doesn't work well. You need to pour the whole thing at one time. So now we got the material mixed. You don't want to leave it sitting in the bucket for a long time. You want to get it out. If you don't know how to mix the material, go watch our video on how to properly mix Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy. But I'm going to pour it out. I like to start in the center of the piece. And just like yesterday, I don't want to pour back there yet because my bucket is so full. I'm going to go over here, get rid of some material here, and then I'm going to pour back there. Now I got some back there. I'm going to come back over here on this end. I'm going to pour over here, and I'm going to get all the material out of my bucket. Why? Because I want to scrape the sides, get everything out, and then mix it together. I mix it together with the trowel, and then again when I'm chopping. So really we're mixing this 3 times. So I'm going to use this makeshift paint stick, just scrape it on out, get all that material out of my bucket right in the center of the mass here, and then I'm going to mix that together with my trowel. And when you trowel this out after you've sanded, it just removes all your sanding marks, makes it look perfect again. Okay, so that's mixed really well. I'm going to now just start spreading this on the countertop. When you spread this on the countertop, I like to bring it right up to the edges, not go over the edge quite yet. On the back wall, you can go right to the back wall because it's going to self-level back at me. And then I'm just going to move this material behind the sink. Probably the hardest part of this pour here on site is just behind the sink because you're limited in space back there. But it's not that hard. It's pretty easy. But that's the hardest part. So if that's the hardest part, we're doing pretty good. Okay. So a little's going over that edge, and that's okay. Just I try not to get a bunch to spill quite yet because I want to control. It's a controlled mess. So I'm just bringing it right to that edge. And when you're spreading this material, because it's nice and warm in here, it flows out so good. But the warmer the material is, the easier it flows. So it's going to be lay more flat for you. But it also, you have to be careful and not go too fast spreading it because you'll whip it right off the top. So just be aware of that. So now here's my excess. It's all kind of still piled up in the center, and I'm just drawing from that excess to pull it to where I want it. And I'm going to come back and remove all that excess. So I'm just going to go over here and do the same thing. I'm pushing it to the back wall, pushing it to my tape. And then I'm pushing it to the back wall, and it's immediately coming right back at me, which is a good sign. That just means it's trying to level. Come over here and push it in that wall. And then I'm going to pull it around my sink rim. I ran out of blue tape, so I had to use white tape around the sink. Normally I like to use blue because it comes off a little easier. But I'm going to immediately pull that tape right after we're done pouring and torching this. Okay. Just pushing this to the walls. I'm going to scoop this right to the front edge. And you can see it's already starting to go over that front edge, and that's just fine. So now I'm going to take the excess of both these sides and I'm going to pull them right off. Put my paint stick in the garbage here. Okay, so here's all of our excess, and let's just pull that off. And this is what I'm going to go in and do the backsplash with. I got the backsplash in another area because this is a cramped bathroom, so I set up another work area to do that backsplash in. When I scrape this back in the bucket, I just kind of go back and forth. Now you got to be careful not to scrape too much off the surface. Okay, so now I got my bristle brush right here in my pocket. So there's my nylon bristle brush. It's brand new. I use a new one for each coat. I don't try to clean them. Make sure that it's de-bristled, and you're going to prime that brush because we're going to do these edges now. So I'm just going to prime that brush and get the whole edge. You're going to need to come back again and pull these drips off before it dries, or you're going to have to sand them off after they're dry. And I'd rather get them off now, but it's not that big of a deal to sand. If you can't babysit the top and you have to leave, you can always sand them after it dries. Okay, getting that front edge. I'm going to get this side edge here. You can see all the drips there. I'm just going to brush those right out. And the edges don't take a lot of material, but make sure that you brush them side to side because the horizontal drips will want to create ridges and bumps. Okay, now I'm going to prime the brush so I can chop it. If you don't prime the brush, it kind of pulls up all the material rather than chopping it where you first start. So I'm going to chop this, and this is like our third time mixing because we're pulling it up and pushing it right back down, but it's getting rid of all the iridescent look that you could get by troweling it out with a trowel. You don't want to show any man-made marks. And this coats just very fast because we're not doing any decoration in it. You can't tell that we sanded. Everything looks perfect again. And it actually self-levels to that back wall where we did our Bondo. it's really flat now because of this second coat. There's still a little bit of a ridge there on the first coat, and the second coat just solves that. I'm going to put a little bit more material, chop it here, just because where I pulled off some of that excess, I could tell it was just a little thin. And a lot of this comes with experience. You know, you'll get very, very used to working with this stuff quickly. Especially if you watch our videos, you'll see we've done a lot of the trial and error for you. You won't make all these mistakes that we did in the beginning. So follow how we do it here, and you'll be really pleased with your result. Okay, so now comes time. I'm going to save this for my backsplash, but I gotta work quickly because my backsplash, this material in the bucket will heat up and dry rather quickly. So I'm going to torch this and go do the backsplash, and then come back and torch it again. So when I torch, it immediately gets rid of those bubbles. And it lays out super flat already. And you don't need to torch that edge too much. You don't want to flow off that edge. Okay. Okay, we're getting ready for our second torch on this material, and you know, this top is already laying out so flat. It's just, after one torching, the clear coat's just warm, everything's working great. It's nice and warm. It's 70 in this room. That's perfect. And now I'm going to torch, and this is all I'm going to need to do. And then about 4 hours later, I'm going to come back and check those drips. I'm going to see if these drips are hard enough or gelled enough, just like I showed last night, where you can scrape those off with that squeegee scraper that I use for the Bondo. We'll get those off, and this job is good. We'll glue that backsplash on tomorrow. When you do the backsplash, you do it just like a top. You're pouring them just like a top. And so you lay it flat, you pour it, you let it dry, you sand those drips off, and you glue it to the wall, and you're done. And then you're going to silicone the joint that meets the countertop and the backsplash. So that's the easiest way to do vertical pieces. You can do shower walls the same way. You can lay out big pieces, pour them, let them dry, sand off the drips on the back, and now they're your shower wall. That's how you do vertical pieces. But just a vertical edge, that's how we do it, so it looks just fine. But if you don't have to do it vertical, don't. Lay it flat and pour it. That's the best way to do backsplash. Another great way to finish this top and backsplash would be to do like a tumbled travertine or a tumbled slate. Something that's really easy to install. It's imperfect already, but if you don't have a tile saw, you can just do the backsplash how we do here. But we use a lot of tumbled stone for our backsplashes because it goes hand in hand with the stone coat countertop look. So let's go ahead and do our second torching. It's really fast. I don't see a bubble in the top, but just for safe measure, let's do it. I'm just sweeping over the area. Okay, that looks really good. So now my hands are already gloved up. I'm already sticky on the hands, and so I'm gonna get my garbage bucket nearby, and I'm gonna demask this. Normally I like to use plastic when I'm masking, but we used a paper handy masker here. Right here you can use handy masker, but know that it can penetrate through this if you left it on the ground or something. But I knew I was going to de-prep this right away, so we should be just fine. But you also want blue rags or rags handy in case you get some on the sink. You can just wipe it right off, and it's not a big deal. Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. We really appreciate all the comments that we get and the feedback and anything that we can do to help you with your stone coat countertop project or future project. Feel free to comment below. If you give us a like, that really helps. It helps our videos get higher in the queue so people will watch them and come across our content. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that it answered questions for you, and we hope that it helps you in your future project. Remember, all these products that we use can be found at stonecoatcountertops.com. Go ahead and visit us there and check it out. Thank you so much again, and good luck on your Stone Coat Countertop project.